Hey guys, what's up? iBubbas coming at you with a D2 video. Today we're taking a look at the Javazon, the Mavs, and we're going to take a look at with the Sunder Charms and see what this build can do. So I do have the old video going over all the gear and stuff for the Frost Maiden Mav girl. But to reiterate, we're using Mavina's bow with a cold facet, Mavina's diadem with a cold facet, Mavina's chest piece with a cold facet, Mavina's gloves, Mavina's belt. We're using war travs, we're using a raven frost, we're using a mana lifesteal ring, and we're using a crescent moon. Now the reason I like a crescent moon is because, as you can see, this is a mana intensive build, so I like not using mana pots when possible. With this, you could actually use a Mars. A Mars would be very good um, because of the resist that you need. So, speaking of inventory, I was using these +1 bow and crossbow skillers, but I took those out and put these 20 life 5 auras charms in. You can use just like 10 or 11 cold res charms, but you can see I'm only at 180 cold res. If I take these off, that puts me below cap, so that's why I just threw these in for now. The rest of our resistances are super good, but the cold res, because of this cold charm here, are bad. Now I do have some all res magic find charms and a couple bow crossbow skillers. I have a Geeds, and of course I have an Annie and a torch. And for offhand, I do have called arms and a spirit. But this is one of my favorite builds in the game. It's just never been super good because, you know, cold characters, and there's so many cold immunes. But I actually made this character on hardcore last season. Now, right now I'm in single player, obviously. But I made this character without an Infinity Merc on hardcore, which I do have Infinity. You can see Fortitude, Andes, and Infinity. Infinity's not super needed, but I mean, if you're min-maxing, it is going to be more damage. With the changes now, it only does 1/5 still against immunes, so you're only getting like -17 resistances from the Infinity, but it's still more damage. So it's not needed at the beginning, but later on, what else are you going to spend your runes on if you're playing this character? But what I like to do, why'd I go to sewers? Um, what I did on hardcore is I farmed this area right here because there's like no cold immunes, and it's right by the waypoint, super easy to get to, the arachnid lair. And this is just a really, no pun intended, chill area to farm. A bunch of spiders, some bats. It was pretty easy on hardcore. Pretty much no chance of dying. And there was no cold immunes. So it made it super easy to farm. And this is, by the way, a level 85 zone. They made that change last time, so yeah, it was a fun area to farm on hardcore using a Mav character. So it'll be fun again, but we're not going to talk about that too much because this is something this character was already really good at doing, right? We want to talk about the new Sunder Charm and what we can do. How viable is this character now for farming things that aren't the arachnid layer or that don't have a lot of cold immunes? So let me get rid of this poison. And I've already got us to start a Chaos Sanctuary. And as you can see, a lot of these guys are cold immune, which makes this build not great. But you can see with the new Sunder Charm, it does okay. Uh, it's definitely not going to be as fast as obviously like a lightning sork or maybe even a cold sork. But I mean, I love this build just because it's just like walking around killing stuff. It's not uh, like teleporting around, stuff like that. It's just a really chill build that I enjoy playing, and now that you can actually play it halfway decent, um, yeah. For terror zones and stuff, I can't test those because I'm in single player, and terror zones aren't in single player right now, so I can't really test those out. But I mean, it should do fine in terror zones, especially once you get in Infinity. You'll be doing just a little more damage. Um, and one thing to note with Infinity, you actually still will do max versus enemies that aren't uh, immune, right? So it'll be doing like the full negative 85 resist versus regular enemies. Unfortunately, with cold res, a ton of enemies are cold res, so it doesn't. It's not great. Infinity, I think, is something you could pass on if you really need to, or if you just don't feel like farming the runes. But like I said, eventually you're probably going to want it anyway, just to min-max. But it's not super needed. But yeah, um, I think this is just a build that got a lot better, and it's actually super cheap. Getting the cold facets is going to be the hard part, but I mean, you don't really even need those. Um, on hardcore, I'm using just the Mavina set, and I kill stuff just fine. Now, obviously, the cold facets are going to help uh, with the immune characters because it will pull down their resist more, so it'll let you do more damage to those. But you know, you're still going to be able to do decent, I think, through tear zones and stuff if you decide to go with this Mavina's set. And later on, you could even upgrade to other things if you don't want to continue on with the Mavina set. I just really like the Mavina set personally. Um, and I'm out of arrows. That's the one downside to a bow build is when you run out of arrows. But anyway, you can see the build does just fine with these new Sunder Charms. I wish they would have left um, Infinity alone, but you can still kill stuff just fine with the changes to Infinity or to, I guess, Conviction, not really to Infinity, and lower res. Um, but I think this is still going to be a super fun build, even better than before. I already love this build anyway, and now this build just got way better. So yeah, that's pretty much it. We may check out a few other builds in the future, and yeah, enjoy the next season of D2R. I think it's going to be pretty exciting with these new charms.